In 1941, inside Germany, decisions were made far from public view. Behind closed doors, small rooms held conversations that would never be officially recorded. These discussions did not appear in newspapers or speeches. They existed only in memory, notes, and silence. Germany in 1941 was a nation consumed by war and secrecy. The streets of major cities still functioned with routine order, yet behind that appearance stood a system built on control, surveillance, and fear. Official announcements spoke of confidence and strength. Public rallies displayed unity. But the true direction of the war was increasingly shaped in private spaces, far from crowds and cameras. The leadership structure was layered and complex. Power flowed through ministries, military commands, and party offices. But many critical decisions were not made in large conference halls. They were formed in smaller settings. Offices with heavy curtains. Private residences guarded by trusted personnel. Rooms where only a few voices were allowed to speak. These spaces became centers of influence without formal titles. By early 1941, Germany faced mounting strategic challenges. Military campaigns stretched resources thin. Logistics grew more complicated. Intelligence reports became less optimistic. Official optimism remained unchanged, but internal discussions shifted tone. Confidence was replaced by calculation. Certainty by contingency planning. Within this atmosphere, select individuals were summoned for discreet consultations. Invitations were verbal. Schedules were adjusted without explanation. Travel orders were vague. Participants often did not know who else would attend until they entered the room. These meetings were not recorded in standard minutes. No official transcripts were kept. What was discussed remained unofficial, yet deeply consequential. The purpose of these gatherings was not ceremonial. They were practical, focused, quiet. Participants brought maps, reports, and estimates. They spoke in measured voices. Disagreement existed, but it was controlled. Each person understood the risk of speaking too freely. Careers and lives depended on restraint. The walls of these rooms were thick. Windows were covered. Guards stood outside, instructed not to listen. Inside, the air was heavy with cigarette smoke and tension. Every sentence carried weight. Every pause mattered. These discussions shaped operations that would soon affect millions, yet the rooms themselves remained anonymous. What made these meetings unique was their informal authority. They existed parallel to official structures. Decisions made here could override established plans. Orders could be altered before reaching the field. Responsibility became difficult to trace. If outcomes failed, there would be no clear record of who decided what. The secrecy was deliberate. Participants understood that written evidence could be dangerous. Paper could survive longer than loyalty. Memory was safer. Ambiguity offered protection. In this system, silence became a tool. By the spring of 1941, these closed-door discussions had become more frequent. Pressure increased. Time narrowed. The need for decisive action clashed with uncertainty. Germany stood at a crossroads, though few outside these rooms realized it. The story of what followed would not be told openly. It would fragment. It would fade. And it would eventually be forgotten. As 1941 progressed, the private discussions intensified. The military situation demanded constant reassessment. Reports arrived daily, sometimes hourly. Maps were updated with new markings. Arrows changed direction. Front lines became unstable on paper before they shifted in reality. The individuals involved in these meetings were not always the highest-ranking officials. Some held advisory roles. Others were technical specialists. Their value lay in information, not authority. This allowed conversations to remain flexible, less formal, more experimental. Ideas could be tested without immediate commitment. Tension inside these rooms grew steadily. Early optimism had eroded. Projections became more cautious. Supply estimates revealed weaknesses. Weather, terrain, and resistance were discussed in precise detail. The language used was clinical. Human cost was often reduced to numbers. This was not cruelty. It was procedure. Disagreements emerged more clearly. Some argued for restraint. Others pushed for acceleration. Strategic priorities competed. Resources could not satisfy every demand. Each decision required sacrifice elsewhere. These trade-offs were acknowledged quietly, without ceremony. Secrecy shaped behavior. Participants avoided direct language. Euphemisms replaced explicit statements. Certain topics were implied rather than spoken. Everyone understood the boundaries. Silence often carried more meaning than words. A pause could signal opposition. A nod could indicate approval. Outside these rooms, official communication remained unchanged. Public messaging emphasized control and inevitability. The contrast between private doubt and public certainty widened. Those involved in the closed discussions lived in both realities. They spoke differently depending on the audience. This division created psychological strain. Records were deliberately incomplete. Notes were brief. Some were destroyed. Others were never written. Orders emerging from these meetings appeared normal on the surface. They carried standard signatures. But their origin was obscured. Responsibility dissolved into the system. As months passed, consequences began to surface. Operations influenced by these private strategies encountered unforeseen resistance. Timelines slipped. Losses increased. Adjustments were made, again behind closed doors. Each revision added another layer of secrecy. Trust within the group was fragile. Loyalty was assumed but never guaranteed. Surveillance was constant. Even among collaborators, caution ruled. This environment limited honest debate. Some ideas remained unspoken. Some warnings were softened. By late 1941, the gap between expectation and reality was undeniable. The private discussions continued, but their tone shifted further. Urgency replaced confidence. Options narrowed. The rooms felt smaller. The silence heavier. What had begun as strategic consultation was becoming damage control. And still, no public trace remained. The climax of these closed-door strategies came without announcement. There was no single meeting that defined it. No dramatic confrontation. Instead, it emerged through accumulation. A series of decisions layered upon one another. Each small choice pushing events beyond reversal. By the end of 1941, the outcomes of earlier discussions were visible on multiple fronts. Operations influenced by private planning reached their limits. Supply chains fractured. Resistance proved stronger than expected. Weather and distance compounded every mistake. The cost became measurable. Inside the meeting rooms, the atmosphere changed again. Voices were lower. Discussions shorter. There was less debate. Fewer alternatives. Some participants were no longer invited. Others disappeared from the process without explanation. Their absence was noted, but not questioned. Losses were no longer abstract. Reports described units reduced beyond effectiveness. Equipment shortages became chronic. Adjustments were reactive rather than strategic. Decisions aimed to stabilize rather than advance. The initiative had slipped away. The secrecy that once protected these discussions now isolated them. Without documentation, learning from mistakes became difficult. Each meeting began without full clarity of what had been decided before. Memory replaced records. Memory failed. Responsibility remained diffuse. No single figure could be identified as the source of failure. This diffusion was intentional, but it carried a cost. Accountability vanished. Correction slowed. Errors repeated. The people involved felt the weight of their choices. Some withdrew emotionally. Others doubled down. The rooms that once represented control now reflected uncertainty. Cigarette smoke lingered longer. Silence filled gaps between brief exchanges. Outside, events moved faster than plans. Reality overtook strategy. The private nature of the discussions prevented broader adaptation. Information stayed contained. The system became rigid at the moment flexibility was needed most. By the final weeks of the year, it was clear that something irreversible had occurred. Not a single collapse. Not a dramatic defeat. But a shift. Momentum changed direction. The private strategies had failed to prevent it. Yet no record would preserve this moment. No transcript. No official acknowledgement. The climax passed quietly. Almost invisibly. The rooms were empty. Meetings stopped. Some participants were reassigned. Others disappeared from records. Documents were misplaced. Notes were destroyed. Memory faded. The buildings stayed. Doors remained closed. Walls held no answers. Silence filled the spaces once alive with quiet urgency. Decisions once debated lingered only in their outcomes. Not in names. Not in minutes. The war moved forward. New orders replaced old strategies. No mention was made of what came before. The private talks were not denied. They were ignored. Forgotten. Time passed. People left. The atmosphere of secrecy dissolved. Furniture remained. Maps decayed. Papers turned to dust. Light shifted through the windows, marking hours that no one recorded. The influence of those closed-door decisions persisted invisibly. Yet no one could trace the choices back to their origin. No acknowledgement. No record. Just absence. And slowly, the memory of those rooms vanished. The air retained a faint echo of discussions, but only in imagination. Names faded from memory. Faces were recalled vaguely, then lost entirely. Only the quiet remained. In the end, what had been critical was gone. Decisions, people, and events disappeared into obscurity. The rooms, once centers of strategy, were forgotten. Only the silence persisted. These stories are rarely told. Subscribe if you want to hear the next one.